It's around that time for each set release that I do a how much do we need to buy type episode for the upcoming set. And while yes, I am going to show those raw numbers today, the fact is for the vast majority of us, they don't really mean a whole lot. First off, there's still too much that isn't known about this new expansion slot and how it works and how difficult the cards we've been seeing from this last week of spoilers from the other classes will be to obtain. And ultimately, the fact is that overall as a set, Bright Lights is going to be consumed very, very differently. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks, and welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. Today I'm talking Bright Lights, which, that's right, is not that far away. And we're doing a set breakdown of sorts, but more importantly, talking about why Bright Lights as a product will be consumed very differently than the previous sets of Flesh and Blood we've seen thus far, and ultimately what that should mean to us. So what do I mean by that exactly? Well, there's a couple of factors here at play. First, and most obvious, this is a mech-focused set. Depending on your personal situation, you may be super hyped or super not, and both takes are completely reasonable. Furthermore, we are coming off of Dusk Till Dawn, an absolutely gorgeous, awesome, and highly anticipated set, but with, let's just be blunt, a very negative return on investment. Some of the absolute worst EV and return on sealed product that we've seen yet this close to a set's release. Last, and absolutely most important, is the limited aspect of this set. Specifically, the promises of amazing sealed play and, of course, the brand new crack shuffle play, which promises to be done with many a six-pack over the next few months. I am super excited about that. And that's why my recommendation overall for the average Flesh and Blood player is that you shouldn't buy any sealed product for the sole purpose of collection building. Now, let's be 100% clear. I am not in any way saying you shouldn't buy Bright Light sealed product. Not at all. What I am saying is that this won't be a set where the vast majority of us run out to our LGS on Friday release, buy our boxes, and then crack them wide open that day to be ready for the next tournament. Finally, there's, as always, the disclaimer here, of course, right, that singles are almost always the most economical option when your goal is to obtain specific cards. That is not new. There's really no debating it. But again, you need to do you. Cracking packs is fun. I get it. But again, singles is always the most economical option. I have to throw that out there. Also, with so many mech cards being spread around to people who just, quite frankly, don't want them, I really just don't see a situation in which the singles prices from this set aren't really low. The exception being, we have no idea what's really going to happen with this expansion slot. And again, all the cards that we've been seeing from spoilers so far and still seeing as they go. Right. So, in my opinion, the maximized value of the set is doing the activity with the cards you bought, the limited activity, the crack seal play, the draft, whatever it may be, versus the actual cards in the set. So hopefully that makes sense to you, at least what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying don't buy product. What I'm saying is if you're going to buy 3 packs, you should probably not just rip them open to see what's in them, but probably try and enjoy those packs with your buddies. That's where I see the value in this set. So let's go ahead and move into the discussion about the set itself, right? I'll go ahead and present the what do we need to buy numbers, right? So for this set, there's 251 cards at 16 per pack. 2 of those are non-functional slots in terms of the limited play, okay? There's 1 Fabled, 7 Legendaries, 46 Majestics, 56 Rares, 129 Commons, and then 9 Marvels. So again, those will be in the alternative slot, whatever we want to call it, along with the token. Right, so the rarity distribution is pretty standard in terms of the packs, so nothing really new there. And then these packs, the price of a box is the same as it has been at least for the last couple sets. Okay, but then let's go ahead and remember we have the brand or the debut of the expansion slot. So the expansion slot is really a driving factor behind a lot of this. It's going to be showing up in 1 in every 15 packs, and it's going to essentially contain the non-mech class stuff, for lack of an overgeneralization, at risk of overgeneralizing. But a lot of this, you know, we saw Brute spoiler, we've seen Warrior spoilers, saw Assassin spoilers the morning as of I'm shooting this, and you know, those presumably would be in those slots because they wouldn't make sense for mech. Right, so if we go look at EVO, by the way, that's the call sign for this set, which is Pretty cool. It's not BL or anything like that. Okay, so we have 264 commons per box, 129 per set, which means you need 387 for a play set. So if you crack 2 boxes, you're going to be well on your way, even with probably non-equal distribution, well on your way to having a full play set of commons. Generally not a problem. Rares, there's going to be, so I'm doing the thing again, right, where I'm estimating this based on Outsiders distribution. I'm not doing it on Bright Lights, because Bright Lights was an expansion set, so I'm going back to Outsiders. Okay, Outsiders was rough in terms of M's. You were getting roughly 7 M's per box. And that's counting kind of the ishness when you would get a foil or foils. Okay, so I had 7 Majestics, so you do the back on that, and then you get 42 rares. Okay, there's 56 rares in the set, which means 168 to a play set. That's, again, assuming that they're all 3 ofs. Probably not going to be entirely true, right? There's going to be almost certainly, I can't imagine there not being some equipment pieces for like the upgrades and stuff where you'd really maybe only need 1, but then again, they go in your deck. So either way, that one comes out to exactly a case to get your play set of rares again, assuming equal distribution. Majestics, actually there's less overall in this set than there were in Dusk Till Dawn, which helps. So we need 138 for the play set, but that's roughly 28 boxes, what that comes out to. And then legendaries are roughly 1.5 per case. So that comes out to about 19 for a full play set. That said, that's no duplication, which is not going to happen to you, right? That's not going to happen. And then you've got the cold foil portion, because I am counting the cold foil rarity. And again, that's just an overall estimation, but it's roughly 1.5 per case. Then we get into, that's right, we've added a line here, the expansion slot. We don't know how many are in the set. We don't know how many are in a full play set, so I can't do the rest of it, but you are going to get 1.6 expansion slots per box, right? So you can do the math and figure out what you're going to get on average for your case. Again, remember, there's no guaranteed distribution of stuff like that, especially when you get like a 1.6, and you've all been in the situation where you haven't gotten a legendary in a case, and I imagine the expansion thing could be the same. So anyway, those are the numbers as presented, but now let me tell you why these numbers are completely crud. Okay, so that is the mathematical numbers. And again, remember, when we go in this, we look at this, I generally recommend a case because it helps you get your commons and your rares, and then the rest is a crapshoot. I still stand by that being logical, but here's why basically after the common and rares, it doesn't make any sense, right? You look at Warband of Bologna, look at Smashing Performance, 2 of the ones we've seen thus far. Warband of Bologna is an L, Smashing Performance is an M, okay? So those are going to be in the expansion slot, but they're going to be counting as the rares and Majestic, or excuse me, as the Majestics, and again, they'll be counting against the Majestics and counting against the legendaries, right? So they're eating into those numbers, but they're in a different slot, but they're also coming at a different rarity, right? So you can see where this starts to get out of control, right? It's fair, I think, the fact that we've seen L's and M's within that slot, I think it's fair to assume that there's a rarity distribution of sorts within that slot. That said, the math doesn't work for, and again, I'm not saying specific card rarity, right? And maybe that's the difference, right? Is where this might fall out is because it's 1 in every 15. If you're going to get an M, you know, let's say they have, just spitballing here, right? Let's say 4 of those L's show up in the expansion slot and the rest are M's. Okay, that means that, you know, you're going to have M's being in that expansion slot most of the time. So on an individual M, obviously an expansion slot M is going to be rarer than any M, but then again, because there's more M cards in the normal pool versus there being less M cards, again, they would be popping up more. So my guess is that they've done the math here to mean that the total, right, if let's say out of the total print run, there's 1 million copies of Smashing Performance printed, there's probably also 1 million copies of Terminator Tank-ish, right? That's my guess, is that's how they've done the math on this. That said, from an individual, if you look at the count of getting an M, your chance of getting an M, any M, it is going to be significant, like the two are not equal, right? So I think in the end, if you are the person who opens 400 million boxes, right, probably irrelevant to you. But to the normal person who's not going to do that, it's going to be very hard. And again, I think that feeds in, again, more to my point of why it's just not to our advantage to be going after specific cards, especially these expansion slot ones, I think it's going to be very hard to get what you want buying sealed. I think you're going to have to, and no matter how much sealed you buy, I think you're probably still going to have to go out on the secondary market. So I think just approach it with a, just approach it with a realistic approach. Okay. And then the other part here is, draft and CSP, I've already talked about how that fits in on how this is going to be consumed. I wouldn't be surprised if for the first, so generally what we see in the first couple days, weeks of an expansion being dropped, cards start pretty high and then they generally drop pretty fast, as everybody starts cracking that stuff. I'm wondering if this time you're not going to see I think you're going to see the same trend, but I think it'll probably be spread out more, because I do think more people who just don't necessarily care about the mech stuff aren't going to be ripping those packs opening day. And again, I'm arguing that you shouldn't be doing that, I think you should, whatever, if you're going to buy a case of this stuff, maybe open it over the next several months with your buddies over beer or playing at the LGS or whatever, I mean, I think that's going to maximize your value. So I do think that the curve will change. I mean, if you need the new Light Warrior headpiece, it might be more expensive out of the gate, but be patient. It will come down because there's going to be a lot of stuff being opened for this over a longer period of time. That's my gut feel on this. So again, I don't think that you're going to be in the right spot by just rushing out and opening it. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how many people pre-order a whole bunch of this. I think a lot of people are going to sit on the sidelines from the sealed stuff because they're not excited about mech. It doesn't necessarily speak to them. So you'll have to do the math. And again, brings me back to, you got to do you, If you are super into mech and you want the whole set of this, or you're a collector and no matter what, you want a whole set of it, probably go buy your case, Do the kind of the standard argument of trying to fill out your base set. And by that, I mean your commons and your rares. Get yourself a little trade stock for what the other stuff you want is. And then, over time, complete your set while you're doing drafts or CSPs into the holidays or whatever it may be, You do you. If you do not give two shakes about the mech stuff, put your pennies in a piggy bank and, CSP with your friends on Friday, and then you've got more in their pocket when we end up going to Savage Lands or whatever it may be next. So anyway, that's kind of my take overall. I mean, I hope I've been clear here. I'm not pooping on Bright Lights at all. I just think that it's going to be a very different set in terms of the consumption and how we approach it, and probably how we should. So anyway, my thoughts, let me know if you agree or disagree. I'm sure most of you have already commented as we've been going, but I'd really like to hear your takes as well. So anyway, folks, thanks for joining me today for this chat. And man, it's only a couple weeks away. Pre-release at the end of this month. So pretty cool. So anyway, I'll see you all on the flip side. Nothing else. Go Commando.